Chapter 71 Blood Essence, makes the Mosquito Queen an inexhaustible mine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The army returned to its territory before it became completely dark. Bane, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately came up to him, with Danya, a little alchemist, by his side. "Good night, my lord." "Is that the Mosquito Queen?" In a huge bubble, the Mosquito Queen with a wingspan of 2 meters had her wings and legs broken off from the roots, leaving only her body covered with black and white spots, like a flesh insect. The ferocious mouthparts speak of the ferocity of this life. Lear nodded. "Yes, the Mosquito Queen's level is as high as level 13, and she is extremely ferocious. Fortunately, the alchemy potion made by Danya helped us a lot this time, otherwise the loss would have been more serious." The little girl who was praised suddenly blushed, feeling a little proud and shy. "Lord, this is what I should do." Lear smiled. "When the city hall is completed, I will build a special alchemy research room for you, so you can study it boldly in the future." The little girl was immediately elated and her joy was beyond words. After praising him, Lear took out the mutated pitcher plant seedlings. "This is Nepenthes mutator, and they need a lot of water to grow. When mature, it reaches a height of nearly 4 meters and produces extremely delicious nectar. You ask someone to go down and try planting." Bane looked at the palm-sized pitcher plant seedlings with some surprise. "This thing will be 4 meters tall when it grows up, and it can also produce nectar." After speaking, Lear asked the two-headed ogre chief behind him to take out some of the nectar he had just packed back, passed it to Bane. After taking a brief sip, Bane's eyes suddenly lit up. "Sir, these nectars are truly delicious. When they want to eat gum, they usually look for beehives, but how can there be so many beehives? It's good to have it once every 3 or 2 years. If it could really be grown, wouldn't it be possible to eat it often? I couldn't wait to take all the seedlings and hold them like babies, for fear of damaging them." Lear couldn't help but smile. He also asked the two-headed ogre chief to take out some and gave them to Danya, who was watching eagerly. "The broad and thick leaves are shaped like a funnel and can hold about a pound of nectar, very suitable for giving to subordinates." The girl took it and immediately showed a shy and happy smile. Lear was also in a good mood. After Bane left, he looked up at the sky. At this moment, bees are still flying overhead. With a thought, the swamp wasps dispersed and returned to the hive to rest. He brought a full load of bubble beasts, Mosquito Queen, and Bee Queen to the front of the swamp tree man. At this moment, the flesh and blood slaughterer without a head and a stitched body lay in front of the tree man, transforming silently. There is no sign of waking up yet. Seeing this, Lear was a little helpless. The two-headed ogre chief broke through and became a heroic unit during the battle, but it has not yet completed its transformation and its specific attributes cannot be seen. The same goes for bog queens. This flesh and blood slaughterer is also undergoing transformation. There aren't many definite co-authors, right? With a wave of his hand, Bubble Beast dumped the gathered corpse next to the flesh slaughterer. No matter what, this terrifying existence that can transform into a divine life is the first priority. Let's talk about other things first. Nearly 100,000 carcasses of fleshy giant mosquitoes and mire wasps were dumped on the grass. It formed a small hill. In an instant, the flesh slayer sensed the arrival of food, and his body emitted a faint scarlet light. Quietly covered the mountain of corpses. Those corpses seemed to have been washed away by thousands of years, weathered rapidly, and turned into debris on the ground in the blink of an eye. After devouring the majestic life force, you can clearly feel that the breath of the flesh and blood slaughterer has increased, but there was still no sign of waking up. Seeing this, Lear raised his eyebrows slightly, feeling a little unbelieving in his heart. Keep feeding, he still doesn't believe it, the other person can keep eating. After calming down, he waved his hand and asked Bubblemon to lift the Mosquito Queen out. He looked at the swamp tree man standing quietly behind him. "You use the roots to imprison the Mosquito Queen. You only need to maintain her life characteristics, but you must not allow her to regain her strength." The thick trunk of the swamp tree man at the front twisted, revealing its ugly and ferocious face. He responded with a loud sound. "Yes, master." Stabbed. The roots hidden in the earth pulled out directly from the ground, and then tied up the Mosquito Queen in circles. Lear saw clearly that after the roots wrapped around the Mosquito Queen, they penetrated directly into the body. Then, just like absorbing the nutrients of the land, it directly extracts the power from its body. This is much more ferocious than Bubbleman's bubble imprisonment. He was greatly satisfied. This way, we won't be afraid of the Mosquito Queen causing trouble again. Level 13 heroes have to be on guard. Moreover, the Swamp Tree Man cannot move and can keep an eye on it all the time. It would be perfect to use these lives to guard the dungeon and the prisoners. Being immobile also has the advantage of being immobile, but how does a Mosquito Queen produce blood semen? This is the purpose of this hunt. Turning to look at the two-headed ogre chief beside him, his tall body would feel visually oppressive standing next to him. Ike, do you know how the Mosquito Queen produces blood semen? The ogre hero was stunned and said hesitantly. Mosquitoes suck blood. They should secrete after being fed enough. He added another sentence. Just like the three-tailed pigs, they will reproduce only after being fed enough. Lear laughed. This statement could not be refuted. After thinking for a while, he said softly. Then go and drive 2 male three-tailed pigs here. Of the 23-tailed pigs currently in captivity, 16 are female and 4 are male. It is enough to keep 2 males for breeding. Now the females are pregnant and will give birth next month, so there is no need to worry about this problem. I'd immediately agreed and drove 2 pigs here in person. When the three-tailed pigs approached, they felt the breath of the Mosquito Queen and were obviously agitated and afraid. Ike was too lazy to care so much. With his fist as big as a sandbag, he knocked out 2 or 3 pigs one by one, then he dragged a 600-kilogram fat pig and threw it in front of the Mosquito Queen, who was tied up by the tree roots, smelling the strong breath of life. The Mosquito Queen was unconscious, but her steel pipe-like mouthparts still moved. Seeing this, Lear tentatively asked the Swamp Tree Man to insert the Mosquito Queen's mouthparts into the three-tailed pig. The unconscious Mosquito Queen immediately gurgled and began to suck the blood of the three-tailed pig crazily. Then a scene that surprised him appeared. The three-tailed pig not only sucked blood, but also flesh and bones crazily. In just 5 minutes, a giant pig weighing 600 kilograms was sucked alive into a piece of skin. At this moment, the Mosquito Queen's breath was still calm. Lear was surprised. The Mosquito Queen's body could actually swallow a big fat pig. At this moment, the Mosquito Queen's abdomen suddenly began to wriggle. Then, an oval scarlet object half the size of a fist, full of life energy, was produced from its abdomen. Plop, it fell directly to the ground. This immediately attracted his attention. Looking at it intently, detailed attributes emerged. Blood essence. Level, 2 stars. Features, contains magnificent vitality. Evaluation, a unique treasure produced by the Mosquito Queen, with various wonderful uses. This is blood essence. 2-star treasure. At this time, the Mosquito Queen's abdomen was still wriggling continuously, and it produced a full 20 blood essences before stopping. Lear's expression became quite subtle. As long as the Mosquito Queen is fed, the other party can produce blood essence. In this case, there is no need to wake up the Mosquito Queen in the future. It's no problem to treat the other party as a living blood essence mine. The Mosquito Queen's combat power is very strong, but it is also good for production. It just so happens that he can't enslave the other party now. While thinking, Lear tried to feed the second pig to the Mosquito Queen. This pig was also sucked until only a piece of pig skin was left, and the other party produced 20 pieces of blood essence, after eating 2 600 kilograms fat pigs. The other party's life breath also recovered a lot, but as soon as it recovered, the Swamp Tree Man began to extract power and forcibly suppressed it. Let the Mosquito Queen remain in a coma. Lear's mood became a little subtle. No one expected that the Mosquito Queen would eventually become a humanoid mind that produces 2-star treasures, but this feeling is not bad. While thinking, he picked up a piece of blood essence and looked at the still unconscious Swamp Queen bee, tried to send it to the other party's mouth, but there was no response. Shaking his head, looking up at the sky, with a thought, several swamp wasps flying in the air immediately flew over, lying on the blood essence, and began to lick it. After just a few licks, he could feel the other party's life breath filling up quickly. The blood essence contained the energy they needed most. The 5 swamp wasps only ate a tiny part, and they felt that the other party was full. Seeing this, Lear summoned hundreds of swamp wasps to gnaw, and they only ate 1/10 of the blood essence in his hand. In other words, this piece of blood essence can feed thousands of swamp wasps. His eyes became bright. Then, as long as the breeding farm is expanded on a large scale and the number of three-tailed pigs is increased, there will be no need to worry about the lifespan of the swamp wasps. In the future, it can be regarded as completely stabilizing the power of the swamp wasps. Sure enough, farming and raising pigs is the right way to develop, comfortable. Chapter 72 Romeo and Juliet, the God Who Harvests Emotions. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After the matter was settled, Lear asked everyone around him to go down and rest. After thinking for a while, he called the swamp banshees, looking at these banshees who were as soft and tender as human girls, with good figures and temperament. His eyes were deep, although the level of the swamp banshees was only level 3, they had shown a good effect in several battles, and if the opponent wanted to increase his level, he needed to devour emotions. This was very interesting. Joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred, and desire were all food. Therefore, the swamp banshees often seduce intelligent life with songs, let their emotions fluctuate greatly, and then kill the enemy. Human fear is the easiest to arouse, and the emotions when dying are the most intense, and they are also the sweetest food. After becoming a member of the City of Dew, they obviously couldn't do this. No one could stand their residents being killed every now and then. Mastered at the 3 swamp banshees who were born not long ago looked at Lear with some curiosity, not knowing why they were called alone. Lear said slowly, "Which emotion do you devour to grow the fastest?" "Master, any emotion is fine. The more intense, the better. There are already hundreds of people in the city of Wispy Dew. If these people's emotions fluctuate violently, can they be your food?" "Of course they are enough," the swamp fairy said hesitantly. "But generally speaking, fear is the easiest to create." Based on their observations over the past few days, the city of Wispy Dew is obviously not a normal city where nobles enslave residents and make everyone live in fear. On the contrary, people live very comfortably here and are very motivated to work. But if you don't create fear, how can you cause big emotional fluctuations? Joy. There are not so many happy things. Other emotions are not easy to arouse. Only fear can be easily obtained by scaring people. Lear nodded. "That's it. Do you know Romeo and Juliet?" That the swamp fairies were a little puzzled and shook their heads together. Lear said meaningfully, "That's it. This is a play, and to create emotions, you don't necessarily need to create fear. Happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy can be expressed through the play, making everyone's emotions fluctuate continuously for several hours. Even after the play, there can still be intense emotional fluctuations. At that time, the emotions you can swallow will be endless. And it is sustainable. Romeo and Juliet is Shakespeare's classic play, which has been passed down for hundreds of years without fading. Its background setting is somewhat similar to the culture of the main plane of Noel, and it can be used with a little adaptation. What else can provoke emotions more than a play that can make people cry and laugh? After doing this beginning well, there will be more that can be adapted and put on the stage for everyone to enjoy. In this world with poor spiritual activities, the cultures in Lear's mind can be easily crushed by just taking out some of them. Real version: culture invades the other world. More importantly, cultivate the swamp banshee first. When he is proficient in the future, it will be easy for him to promote some content. God needs to be preached. This is the story. Lear slowly narrated this long-standing love story. He had seen this play, and because of the actress's super high appearance, he had a deep memory of it. The story was told in a gentle and pleasant way. The swamp sirens were attracted, and when they heard the last part of the plot, when the messenger passed the news of Juliet's fake death to Romeo, he accidentally delayed and did not pass the news. As a result, Romeo mistakenly believed that Juliet was dead. In grief, he came to Juliet, who was pretending to be dead, kissed his lover desperately, and drank poison and died. Juliet, who woke up from the fake death, found that her lover had died for her. She was heartbroken and used a long sword to kill herself and followed her lover. It led to a pair of true love, but because of various misunderstandings and family pressure and destruction, they finally died of love. After listening to this, several swamp sirens had red eyes and tears in their eyes. "Master, this story is so heartbreaking. Is there really such a passionate person? Can we really interpret this story? So touching." Lear couldn't help but smile when he saw this. "Sure enough, Even a girl from another world couldn't stand this deep love, slowly said. This is natural. The story outline is here, but it's just the foundation. You need to rehearse it. Casting, costumes, props, lines, lighting, stage effects, this is a systematic project. You can ask Bane to cooperate and rehearse the story perfectly. This is just the beginning. The most important thing for you is to find out what you need. There will be more dramas waiting for you to perform in the future. The Swamp Banshee has a trump card that can directly seduce people's souls, and can cheat directly, even if you don't prepare anything. You only need to seduce with singing to make the crowd's emotions fluctuate. Of course, the best is still to do both. The Swamp Banshee is born to do this, that is to say, there is no live broadcast in this world, otherwise the top brother on the list would press the recharge button to make smoke. After the Swamp Banshee left happily, Lear also returned to the tent and had a comfortable sleep. The next day, August 16th, when he woke up in the morning, Lear opened the intelligence system and took a look. The food of the dragon blood red fish, the fishtail grass, has been obtained, and the colorful moss for feeding the three-tailed pig has also been cultivated. After enslaving the Mosquito Queen, the blood essence necessary for the mud hornet to extend its life is no longer a problem. There are still 2 pieces of information left to be completed, the divinity controlled by the Dark Naga, and the passing of the wetland lizardman tomorrow. In addition, the smelly giant monster mentioned in the previous intelligence has also appeared yesterday. There is also the ancient ruins discovered by the half-fish man, which has not been explored in time. The information about the Dark Naga is the most valuable, but correspondingly, the opponent is also the most difficult. The passing of the wetland lizard man will have to wait until tomorrow. While thinking, his eyes quickly locked on the smelly giant monster and the half-fish man ruins. Today, we will capture this smelly giant monster gathering point first, and wait until the Mud Queen Bee and the two-headed ogre chief have completed their transformation, and then deal with the Dark Naga. It's better to go to this high-level wild monster map when you are sure of your chances. After a simple wash, I just walked out of the tent and found that the Swamp Banshee was rehearsing not far away. The residents who had just woken up looked at me curiously. Apart from anything else, just the Banshee with such a high appearance standing in front of me can give people a pleasing feeling. Lear looked at the somewhat stiff movements and smiled. He went up to personally guide them and taught them all the acting skills he learned from variety shows. The Swamp Banshee is really talented in acting. He didn't understand it very well, but she learned it as soon as she learned it, and she acted vividly without any trace of acting. He gave her a thumbs up. Banshee is Banshee, awesome. After a short relaxation, let them stop for the time being, and then began to gather the army for hunting. 10 teams of wetland lizardmen warriors, 8 bubble beasts, 3 swamp banshees, plus 2 heroes, hags, and the two-headed ogre chieftain. In addition, except for leaving 10,000 swamp wasps to continue building nests, the remaining 50,000 were all taken away. They set out directly to the north and headed straight for the stinking giant monster. There was no conversation along the way, and the journey of nearly 2 hours passed quietly. They arrived at the location of the stinking giant monster again. As soon as they approached this area, they smelled a very strong stench. It was like a dead fish fermenting in the dark for half a month, giving people a strong and pungent impact. Lear frowned. With a thought, he let the swamp wasps fly to the ground vegetation temporarily and wait. He took Bubble Beast and 2 heroes and quietly moved forward. After pushing aside the grass, the view suddenly became empty. In the void, a building was floating and sinking. It could be barely seen that it was a dilapidated building, but the specific shape could not be distinguished. The surrounding space was like a water curtain, rippling. The ruins building really appeared. Under the building, hundreds of tall and majestic monsters were passing through the space back and forth, entering the hazy ruins. They were over 3.5 meters tall, with a single horn on their heads, and their mouths were open like petals, full of sharp teeth. They were covered in animal skins, with large areas of skin exposed and dense hair. They had no weapons in their hands, but they could intuitively feel the power brought by their huge bodies. But what made Lear frown was not the ferocity of these beasts, but the stench in the air that had soared several times at this moment. My eyes were a little uncomfortable, and I felt a bit like I was smoked by smoke. Ugh! Several bubble beasts around me vomited directly after smelling the smell. It was so disgusting. How could there be such a stinky guy in this world? Lear's magic power surged, and he isolated the breath of the outside world, and his face recovered a little. He looked at it intently, and the attributes of those terrifying monsters appeared in his mind. Smelly giant, level 9, potential, 2 stars, racial talent, smelly body odor, with extremely foul body odor, life that smells it will fall into nausea, retching, and fatigue, and its combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. Skills, fist bomb, 2 stars, bad breath spray, 2 stars, black mud skin, 2 stars. Evaluation, monsters with extremely unique smells, perhaps. No one is willing to fight them. 2-star potential, level 9 life, and it's so disgusting. Lear frowned, looking back. Fortunately, the muddy wasps did not react to its stench. His eyes gradually became cold and unambiguous, turning his head to look at the little cute thing beside him. All bubble beasts use bubble bombs to attack and disrupt the formation of the stinky giants. Swamp Banshee, when the bubble bombs are ready, immediately use your singing to confuse the stinky giants and let them let down their guard. Then he moved his mind and covered all the muddy wasps. After the explosion, attack immediately. Don't leave any alive. The swamp wasps in the back immediately perked up and waited for the horn to sound. The bubble beast began to blow bubbles. The bubbles quickly grew larger, reaching a diameter of 3 meters. With sufficient preparation, each bubble beast controlled 5 bubbles. At the same time, the swamp banshee opened her mouth slightly, and a melodious song came out. The next moment, 40 giant bubbles with a diameter of 3 meters were fired like cannonballs. They flew directly towards the smelly giant monster. Bang! The violent explosion caused a surging air wave, which directly blew away the gathered and stabbed stinking giant monsters. At this moment, insect swarm. Attack! Buzz buzz buzz. The swamp wasps that had risen again were like arrows, madly passing through the grass and stabbing straight down. The stinking giant monster was first dazed, and then the surroundings exploded. In the confusion, before he could figure out what happened, he saw the sky darken. Then the swarm of bees attacked. He immediately felt the severe pain brought by the bee venom. The defense of the swamp wasp is very low, and even ordinary people can be killed by 1 foot, but with a highly toxic, 10-centimeter long tail stinger, it is a weapon that no one dares to underestimate. Puff puff. During the high-speed flight, the tail stinger on the curved abdomen directly cut through the skin of the stinking giant monster and pierced into the body. Some stingers opened long cuts on its skin. The highly toxic venom corroded the nerves crazily. At this moment, the stinking giant monster on the ground was directly swallowed by the swarm of bees. As if sensing something, the stinking giant monsters in the ruins also rushed out frantically, but in front of the scourge-like bee swarm. All this seemed to be a decoration. At the same time, the wetland lizardman warriors, led by Haggis and the 2-headed ogre chieftain, also launched an attack. Holding steel knives and wearing heavy armor, the heroes acted as pioneers. The formation was already in chaos, and the companions were strangled by the swamp wasps, so the stinking giants could not organize a decent counterattack. The wetland lizard men had no advantage in height and were also behind in level. But with the singing of the swamp banshees and the offensive of the swamp wasps, these warriors who were not afraid of pain quickly made achievements. The wetland lizardman warrior rushed to the stinking giant monster, suddenly lowered his body, and chopped the steel knife directly on the opponent's knee. Puff. Blood exploded, and the huge body staggered and fell to the ground. Just after struggling to get up, the 2 lizardman warriors behind him had already jumped up. The steel knife chopped down fiercely. Puff. A huge scar appeared on the neck, breaking in half. The blood vessels were torn, blood gushed out, and shot out more than 10 meters high. Buzz buzz buzz. The blood instantly stimulated the dense swamp wasps. The flying speed increased again. The 3 parties joined forces to strangle. The smelly giant monster on the field fell quickly. Under the power, this surprise attack and siege battle almost showed an overwhelming advantage. Chapter 73, Damn, a Divine Weapon. No, it's even more powerful than a divine weapon, the Horn of PL. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73, Damn, a Divine Weapon. No, it's more powerful than a divine weapon, Horn of Plenty. When Lear first entered the swamp, he didn't dare to look at the level 9 stinking giant. This is a high-level wild monster that he couldn't afford to offend, but in just 10 days, he didn't need to spend too much time to launch an attack, he even just needed to watch the battle calmly from the back without any worries. The only thing to do is, perhaps, once a wetland lizardman warrior is injured, the swamp gift will flow into his body. In time, swamp wasps don't matter. These assassins with thin blood, once attacked by the opponent, there is almost no possibility of survival. The swarm tactics is to overwhelm the enemy with excessive numbers. Once dispatched, it will be a fight to the death. There is no need to consider casualties, just look at the results. Under the crazy attack, the stinking giants fell one by one, soon half of them were killed. Seeing this, Lear also had a strong sense of accomplishment. It's like playing games before, when you can't beat some high-level bosses, so you practice a wave of levels in the low-level area, and challenge them when you're stronger, then you can easily chop off the high-level boss with joy. The power in your hands is accumulated bit by bit. Now is the time to check the results. The singing of the swamp banshee is still loud, disturbing the stinking giants all the time. You will be in a trance if you are not careful. On the battlefield, a moment of slowness determines life and death. Killing madness. Under the powerful force, the stinking giants were quickly harvested, and they have no weapons, so if they want to kill the mud wasps, they can only rely on their hands and feet. To deal with lives like wetland lizardmen warriors, relying on powerful strength will not be bad. But to deal with a group of insects, using hands and feet seems pale and powerless. Buzz buzz buzz. The number of stinking giants is getting smaller and smaller, and in the end, only the sound of mud wasps flapping their wings is left on the field. The battle lasted from the beginning to the end, and it didn't even take more than 10 minutes. The two squadrons of smelly giant monsters had all fallen. Looking up, the half-hidden and half-visible ruins were still hidden in the void. The ground was covered with huge remains of bones, and blood dyed the soil, moss and grass red. The ferocious wasps were still circling in the sky. Several scenes were reflected on each other, and this scene was quite visually impactful. Gather all the corpses. After Lear gave the order, he looked at the building hidden in the void. With a thought, some of the swamp wasps above his head flew directly into it. It was like passing through a water curtain and disappeared without a trace. In a blink of an eye, they flew out again. Safe. Lear felt a little relieved and waved his hand to let the two teams of wetland lizardmen warriors around him enter first. The two teams entered and explored it, and it was still safe. After the second confirmation, Lear waved his hand and let the two-headed ogre chief and hags enter again. This time, he stepped into it after confirming that it was safe. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. If you want to live long, it is better to be cautious. Passing through the void like a water curtain, Lear felt a little obstruction on his body, and then he passed through directly. His vision suddenly changed. A unique ruins appeared in front of him. The sky was gray and the light was dim. Under his feet was a semicircular open space with a diameter of more than 300 meters, paved with blue stone slabs, with large patches of cracks on it. Behind him, it was pitch black and nothingness. The moment he looked over, he immediately felt an unspeakable sense of crisis. It seemed that as long as he stepped into it, he would be deprived of his life. A word suddenly emerged in his mind: endless void. Outside the main plane, there is an endless void, with nothing in it, no magic, no air, only endless nothingness. Ordinary people who enter it will have their souls eroded by the void in a breath. Only gods can cross the endless void. This relic building is hidden in such a dangerous place. Lear took a deep breath and looked forward. In front of the wide square is a towering stone building that has collapsed for the most part. A large number of gray pillars support the house, which is more than 20 meters high, but at this moment, the roof has collapsed, and the pillars are tilted to all directions. On several intact pillars, there are carvings of the revival of all things and the scenery full of vitality. Carefully identify, it can be vaguely seen that this building seems to be used for sacrifice. After Lear looked at it for a while, the intelligence system suddenly flashed and refreshed the prompt. You entered the sacrificial hall of the Mother Earth Goddess hidden in the void, and obtained a piece of information. In the center of the sacrificial hall, in the statue of the Mother Earth Goddess, there is a special treasure hidden, the Horn of Plenty, which needs to be broken to obtain the statue of the Mother Earth Goddess. Note that when breaking the statue, you will be hit by the power of God. Seeing the sudden prompt, Lear's eyes lit up immediately. Mother Earth Goddess. Special treasure, Horn of Plenty. Wow, here is actually a sacrifice to the Mother Earth. This is the main god with countless believers in the Nor plane, neutral and lawful camp. almost all life on the main plane has enough respect for the Mother Earth. This is the Mother of the Earth, the source of countless lives. It is also the god with the most temples and the most believers in the main plane. I didn't expect this to be the other party's sacrificial hall, and there are special treasures hidden here, but the problem is that you have to break the statue to get it. As long as it is an intelligent life, it is difficult to do such a thing, and it is also very bold to dare to break the statue of the Mother Goddess. This is still hanging high in the sky. The kingdom of God is located in the endless void. And it often descends the mighty existence of God. Who dares to blaspheme God? But after Lear took a deep breath, his eyes were full of excitement. Friends who often act as gods should know that everyone is a god, so there is no blasphemy. Waving his hand, he took the two heroes into the sacrificial hall that had collapsed for the most part. After entering, he immediately saw the statue of the Mother Goddess in the center. Her face was full of kindness. She wore a wreath woven from wheat ears and fruits on her head, and a cloak woven from various foods on her body, and her eyes were gentle. Just seeing the other party's statue, you can feel the feeling of being bathed in spring breeze. The surrounding area was cleaned very cleanly. Those smelly giant monsters obviously dared not show any disrespect to the statue of the Earth Mother. Calming down, he turned his head and looked at Haggis. Go and smash the statue. Haggis was stunned for a moment, but without any hesitation, he strode forward. He raised the steel knife in his hand and was about to chop it down. But the next second, a fierce pressure came. It was like a mountain thousands of feet high collapsing and countless stars smashing into the earth. That majesty was simply not something that mortals could resist. It directly shook the soul. Haggis spurted out a mouthful of blood, his breath weakened, and his eyes were full of fear and disbelief. At this moment, he seemed to be noticed by the majestic and supreme existence. Lear narrowed his eyes slightly. He strode forward and pressed his right hand on the statue. The swamp godhead in his body glowed with a light blue light, emitting endless pressure. It directly enveloped the statue, but at this moment, Lear suddenly felt that a vague and kind face appeared in his mind, like the affinity of a 60 or 70-year-old grandmother who has done good deeds all her life. God of the swamp. Are you awake? No, that's not right. Are you the successor of the god of the swamp? The Horn of Plenty has been lost for countless years. I didn't expect you to find it. I used this treasure a long time ago. Although it is not high level, it is quite meaningful to me. The artifact I am using now, called the Crown of Plenty, is because of this treasure. I will help you unlock its seal. Young successor, I hope you can carry the power of the god of the swamp and let the swamp rise again. May the earth bless you. As the voice fell, the kind face disappeared quietly, and the power left on the statue was completely consumed. At the same time, the statue of the Mother Earth Goddess collapsed directly. Then countless rays of light flowed out of the statue. In the air, it condensed into a snow-white jade-like horn that was as long as an arm and curved. The Horn of Plenty. Lear held the treasure in his hand, and his eyes became quite subtle. He never expected that the Earth Mother Goddess would suddenly appear in front of him. He also didn't expect that she would give him the Horn of Plenty. There is a reason why this Mother Goddess is respected by everyone. Her character is just like the earth, which can accommodate everything in the world. Everything on earth and the source of life all come from the Earth Mother Goddess, and she doesn't seem to need anything to decorate. As long as the main plane is not destroyed and life lasts forever, whether it is good or bad, the Earth Mother Goddess will exist forever. This is the confidence of this Mother Goddess who has stood tall in several battles of the gods. He took a deep breath and looked at the Horn of Plenty in his hand that was unsealed by the Earth Mother Goddess. How powerful can a treasure used by this great god be? He looked at the attribute panel in his mind with expectation. Horn of Plenty, level, special, features, 1, plenty, bless the area with good weather and good harvests, shorten the growth cycle of crops by 30%, and increase the yield by 30%, 2. Livestock is prosperous. You can bind 5 kinds of livestock and poultry, shorten their growth cycle by 50%, and increase their weight limit by 30%, 3. No disasters or diseases. The lives in the shelter are no longer attacked by diseases, and it is no longer difficult to produce cubs. Evaluation. This treasure used by the Mother Earth Goddess has endless uses. After reading the properties of the Horn of Plenty, Lear suddenly felt dry in his mouth and his breathing quickened. This treasure is amazing. This fucking artifact is just like this, right? No, this is more powerful than an artifact. Chapter 74, Making a Huge Profit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Increase food production, shorten planting cycle, reduce livestock growth cycle, increase weight limit, plus immunity to diseases, safe birth of cubs, the three attributes of the Horn of Plenty, any one of them is considered top-notch, add the three together. What is the artifact? This is the artifact. Blood profit, blood profit. Lear's breathing was trembling. This treasure is used to develop the territory, it is absolutely amazing. Mother Goddess of the Earth, you are the eternal God. Suddenly, he couldn't wait to return to the territory. Now, he just wanted to reclaim the farmland immediately, plant wheat, and then bind the three-tailed pigs and dragon blood-red fish to make them grow. The appearance of this treasure has suddenly increased the foundation of the city of Weirdo. And the stronger the territory, the greater the role of this treasure, it is simply unlimited potential. After calming down, let the two-headed ogre chieftain, who is in a better state, continue searching with the wetland lizard warriors, but unfortunately, no more discoveries were made. The stinking giant monster seemed to simply regard this place as its base. However, this time, with the Horn of Plenty in hand, it has already made a lot of money, so what else does it need? After confirming that there was no gain, Lear came to the broken statue, put his right hand on his chest and bowed, then he left the ruins, passing through the water curtain-like space and coming outside. The bubble beast just collected all the corpses, the fragments of limbs scattered around were swallowed up by the mud wasp, and the blood on the ground was also licked by it, making the field look much cleaner. The daily food of these ferocious insects is various lives in the swamp. The swamp is rich in life, not only ferocious wild monsters, but also a large number of insects. They can also maintain a large population by hunting. However, because of this, the number of their population will always be limited. Food is a problem that is always difficult to avoid. Once there are too many members, filling the stomach every day will become a heavy burden. This may be the biggest difference between hunting and farming. Gather the army and return directly to the territory. There was no conversation along the way. Lear returned to the city of Wei Lu in excitement, and the moment he stepped onto the territory, he felt something in his heart, and immediately clenched the Horn of Plenty in his hand, and immersed himself in it. The next moment, a special feeling came to his mind. In the future, as long as the Horn of Plenty is placed in the territory, with Wei Lu City as the center, a radius of 50 kilometers, residents can be protected by the Horn of Plenty for development, occupation, farming, and breeding. Once you leave the territory, you will lose the bonus, a radius of 50 kilometers, which almost covers the entire Silt Swamp. Lear laughed. He waved his hand to let Bubble Beast transport the corpse to the swamp treatment area, and he couldn't wait to come to the pig farm 3 kilometers away in the southeast direction. Looking at the three-tailed pigs humming in the pen and eating wild grass sweetly, his heart was full of expectations. With a thought, the mind mobilized the Horn of Plenty. The next moment, the breath of the three-tailed pigs was imprinted in the Horn of Plenty. Then a new attribute appeared on the panel dash. Prosperous animal husbandry, can bind 5 kinds of livestock and poultry, shorten their growth cycle by 50%, and increase their weight limit by 30%. Already bound, three-tailed pig, done. It only takes 3 months for the three-tailed pig to grow to 600 kg, if the growth cycle is shortened by 50%, it will only take 1.5 months to grow to 600 kg, 45 days, 600 kilograms, an average of 13.3 kilograms per day. Lear smacked his lips, feeling a little outrageous. Can you eat more than 10 kilograms of meat a day? Moreover, with the Horn of Plenty, the three-tailed pig can be immune to the invasion of diseases, and there will be no problem of dystocia when giving birth to cubs. You can eat and give birth freely. This is too cool, right? The pig farming business is about to take off. Ha ha ha. The swamp people and Delsa people who were responsible for taking care of the three-tailed pigs on the side watched their master laugh at the pigs at the door of the pig pen. Suddenly, everyone was curious. What did the Lord see? He could laugh so happily in front of the pigs. After he left, several people curiously stood where he stood and tried to laugh. Lear, who had not walked far, heard the movement behind him and turned his head to look, and his face was suddenly black. "These top-notch creatures, do you think I am happy to look at the pigs?" Several swamp people felt something was wrong, turned their heads, and were immediately frightened to the point of shaking legs and cold backs, and ran to work. Lear, who was in a good mood, twitched his mouth, and was too lazy to pay attention to these guys. After returning to the territory, he immediately came to the fish farm in the north. Standing on the shore, these colorful, long-bearded two-star magical creatures were happily eating fishtail grass. This was in stark contrast to the way he refused to speak even in the past few days. Even if the strategic value of the dragon blood red fish is not as great as that of the three-tailed pig, it is definitely a treasure. As long as it can be developed, no one can ignore it in the future, but the question is fish considered livestock or poultry? With a thought, he tried to engrave the breath of the dragon blood red fish into the horn of plenty. After a while, the dragon blood red fish quietly appeared in the binding list of the horn of plenty. Lear was overjoyed. It worked again. It is indeed a treasure used by the mother goddess of the earth. What a treasure, what a treasure. Looking at the dragon blood red fish swimming in the water, he was full of joy. The problem of the other party opening their mouths to eat has been solved, and the next step is to study how to breed dragon blood red fish. The reproduction of fish is not like livestock such as three-tailed pigs, which lay thousands or even tens of thousands of eggs at a time. In the wild, the growth of fry will be threatened by various natural enemies, and there are very few fry that can grow up, so a large number is needed to improve the survival rate, but it is different when raising them at home, and you can do enough homework to ensure the survival rate. As long as the dragon blood red fish can lay eggs and reproduce, its number will increase explosively, and the characteristic of shortening the growth cycle by 50% can make the dragon blood red fish grow faster. After calming down, Lear only felt that the sun was shining and the world became bright. At present, 2 kinds have been bound, and 3 kinds of livestock can be found for breeding. Just thinking about it makes me happy. After this busy time, it was already afternoon, and Lear did not go out hunting again. Step to the swamp tree man. At this time, more than 200 corpses of smelly giant monsters were piled up by bubble beasts on the green grass. They formed a small hill. The internal organs, bones, flesh and blood, plus the pungent stench, formed a purgatory scene. But Lear's eyes were always calm. The high-intensity battles during this period have already made him grow up. The bloody corpses can no longer have any impact on him. He has grown into a qualified pioneer lord who survives and develops in the wilderness. Steel knives and blood are the eternal theme of this land. He took a deep breath and turned his head to look at the Mosquito Queen who was tightly tied by the tree roots. "Feed them 10 corpses." The swamp tree man immediately responded. The tree roots were like the tentacles of an octopus, slowly wriggling, rolling up the corpse, and then inserting the Mosquito Queen's mouthparts into the corpse. Gugugugu. The Mosquito Queen instinctively began to suck, and didn't care whether there was blood or not. The broken corpse was eroded by the digestive juices contained in the mouthparts, gradually turning into blood and flesh, and was swallowed up. This time, not even the skin was left. The 10 corpses were quickly swallowed up. The Mosquito Queen's life breath recovered a lot, but the next moment, the swamp tree man who used roots to penetrate her body sucked up the vitality, firmly controlled its state. The corpse was swallowed, and the abdomen began to wriggle. Pieces of blood essence fell to the ground. 10 broken corpses of the stinking giant monster produced 60 pieces of blood essence. Obviously, the energy contained in the 9th level stinking giant monster is more considerable. Lear did not pick up the blood essence, but looked up at the sky. With a thought, dozens of muddy wasps flew down, grabbed the blood essence with their hairy feet, and took off steadily. These 60 pieces of blood essence are enough for all muddy wasps to replenish their original energy and restore their lifespan. After this matter was settled, he looked at the flesh slaughterer in the distance. This divine life that was still transforming was guarded by the swamp treeman day and night, but the other party still showed no signs of waking up. Divinity is the energy born in the body of the gods, which is countless levels higher than ordinary magic. Once awakened, it will have extremely terrifying power. Interestingly, the intelligence system prompted that the Dark Naga also had divinity in its hands, and after fusion, it could enhance the strength of the flesh slaughterer. But the intelligence value of 4 stars also destined those Dark Nagas to be extremely difficult to deal with. They can be explored in the early stage, but the real strategy can only be said after the flesh slaughterer wakes up. He was unwilling to consume a lot of manpower to take risks. This world is not a game, and there is no chance to start over, accumulating strength, and waiting for enough confidence to flatten the previous powerful enemies. This is the right way to develop. While thinking, he was not vague and asked the swamp treeman to move the remaining corpses to the side of the flesh slaughterer. No matter what the situation, the divine life is the absolute priority. The next moment, the flesh slaughterer emitted a faint blood-red light, and in the blink of an eye, it enveloped the corpse, cracked. The corpse quickly weathered and shattered. When the surrounding corpses turned into residues and all the flesh and blood energy was devoured, the flesh slaughterer's body suddenly trembled. A hazy and vague emotion was transmitted: hungry. Hungry. Lear was stunned at first, and then very surprised. After all the crazy feeding during this period, there was finally movement. Immediately conveyed a comforting emotion, but the other party's hazy thoughts continued to come. Hungry. Food. Hungry, conveyed simple thoughts over and over again. After a moment, the thoughts were disconnected, and the flesh slaughterer returned to its previous state again. Lear's eyes were slightly condensed. The previous feeding was not in vain, but it was far from enough. More flesh and blood feeding is needed. Once this divine life wakes up, he will have an absolute trump card in his hand. After waiting for a moment, confirming that the flesh slaughterer was no longer moving, Lear also regained his calm. While thinking, he looked at the swamp tree man. He raised the bent treasure in his hand. This is the Horn of Plenty, a treasure given to me by the Mother Earth. You bury it underground and protect it with roots. No one can move it without my permission. The Horn of Plenty must be placed in the territory to take effect. In the future, I will definitely go to various places in the swamp, and even leave the swamp to explore the wilderness. This treasure cannot be carried with me all the time. Yes, master. The swamp tree man replied solemnly. They cannot move, so they are the perfect candidates for guarding. After arranging this matter, Lear thought of the mutant pitcher plant he obtained yesterday. Can the Horn of Plenty shorten the growth cycle of the mutant pitcher plant? Is this thing also considered a crop? He came to the south of the city of Microdu with great interest. There was a vacant land here, and the mutant pitcher plants had been planted. Each plant was 10 meters apart, and these 20 plants occupied a lot of land. At this moment, the pitcher plant was still a seedling, the size of a palm, with small leaves, and nothing special could be seen. The roots were buried in the wet mud, and water flowed from both sides. The roots of the pitcher plant extended out of the soil, swaying in the muddy water, drinking water like a water pipe, and a small string of bubbles emerged. He could clearly feel that with sufficient water supply, the roots of the pitcher plant were growing rapidly. Although it doesn't grow as fast as the colorful moss, it's still several times faster than ordinary plants. The characteristic of the pitcher plant is that it can grow quickly with sufficient water. Combined with the characteristics of the Horn of Plenty, it becomes quite extraordinary. At this rate, it may not take long to see the mutant pitcher plant grow and mature. Thinking of the sweet nectar, Lear's mood improved a bit, collecting various plants and livestock to cultivate and raise, and developing the territory bit by bit. This feeling makes him a little addicted. Chapter 75 Huge Harvest Level 11, Cold-Blooded Cavalry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 75 Huge Harvest, Level 11, Cold-Blooded Cavalry. The next day, when the sky was bright and he could barely see his fingers, Lear had already gotten up to call the army. At noon on August 17, a group of wandering wetland lizardmen will pass by 20 kilometers from the west. These wetland lizardmen have the forbidden secret recipe for cultivating the unique lizardman's army. Cold-blooded cavalry. Intelligence value, 2 stars. Today's intelligence is time-sensitive. If you miss it, you may not be able to find the opponent's trace. A 20-kilometer journey is not short in the swamp. If you set out in advance, there will be enough preparation space. After the army gathered, they set out immediately, and the black swamp wasps were in the sky. The marching speed was very fast. In just 2 hours, they had walked more than 10 kilometers. The sky was bright, the sun was dim in the sky, and the clouds gradually brightened. Suddenly, a group of swamp wasps returned from the front, and their wings roared. An emotion surged into my mind. The enemy was found ahead. These flying creatures have gradually replaced the wetland lizardmen and become the main scouts. Lear's eyes condensed, and he immediately gathered the army and went to explore. After walking forward for hundreds of meters, his pace gradually slowed down. He carefully pushed aside the leaves in front of him, and a group of very strange creatures appeared in his sight. Tall and strong body, gray skin is very rough, circles of fat on the surface of the body droop down, forming a pile like a swimming ring on the body, small eyes, wide mouth like a square, short and thick limbs, mud hippopotamus, level 6, potential 2 stars. At this moment, these 40 mud hippopotamus are gathering together, raising their short and thick hands in the mud and water. Shouting something crazy, everyone holds a piece of white bones in his hand. Crazy look, woo. 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 After a series of shouts, suddenly, the white bones in his hand emit a dark light. It was like a demon poking its head out of the abyss, and the air was filled with an evil breath that made people's backs cold, enveloping everyone. The next moment, the evil suddenly poured into the body of the mud hippopotamus, and the breath on his body became crazy, his eyes suddenly became ferocious, and the breath emanating from his body became dark. A word suddenly emerged in Lear's mind: evil god. Sacrifice. The evil gods who live in the bottomless abyss and unknown dimensional planes, who control the power of evil paths, are always spying on the rich and abundant main plane. Even the big cities that are strictly controlled by the church will inevitably be infiltrated. The wilderness without the church's power is even more densely populated by evil god believers. In the wilderness where the law of the jungle is rampant, you must have enough power to survive, but unfortunately, most people are just hunted. The evil gods who are always spying on the main plane can directly give power to their believers, and respond to the believers' prayers in time, which can almost satisfy all the desires of the believers, although the price is corruption and depravity. But, if there is no hope of living, then isn't depravity a kind of rebirth? Lear could faintly feel the evil breath coming from the void, looking at each other from a distance. That was a look from an unknown place far away from the main plane. In a moment, the sacrifice of the silt hippopotamus was completed, and a new status bar appeared on their panel: depravity progress, 20%. The evil gaze also disappeared at this moment. As long as the sacrifice continues, these hippopotamus will soon be completely depraved. He was a little curious, what would it be like to be completely depraved? However, if they dare to get involved with the evil god, it is impossible to let them survive. He raised his right hand and waved it slightly. Et. Leave 2 alive, and the others, life or death. The 2-headed ogre chieftain beside him suddenly clenched the thick mace in his hand and rushed forward with a grin. The silt hippopotamus was still immersed in the excitement of being watched by the evil god. Seeing the 2-headed ogre chieftain suddenly rushing out of the woods, he was shocked at first, and then furious. Bastard, dare to interrupt their worship of the true god. The first 7 or 8 rushed forward in anger, and when they saw the mace coming, they raised their hands and tried to grab it. The 2-headed ogre chief felt humiliated when he saw this, and the muscles of his arms bulged high, and his strength burst out again. Bang! The mace hit the other party's grasping palm, and it was instantly smashed into pieces, and the flesh and blood were blurred. The power did not decrease, and it hit the other party's head, and the bones and flesh burst instantly, splashing all over the sky. Evil god believer. Even if he is the offspring of the evil god, he must die. The 2-headed ogre chief, who is nearly 3 meters tall and has a level of 11, is like a god of war. The 4 teams of mud hippopotamus are like children facing a rhinoceros rushing forward, and they can't stop it at all. The mace that made a whirring sound of breaking through the air, if it touched it, it would be dead, and if it touched it, it would be disabled. In the end, he smashed all the mud hippopotamus of the 4 teams alive by himself. Covered in blood and mud, he looked like a demon crawling out of the swamp. Lear watched the scene silently. Since he enslaved the other party, he had never properly understood the combat power of this ogre. Seeing that the situation was settled, he felt relieved. Unlike the wetland lizard men who had both skills and strength, the 2-headed ogre chief relied more on surging brute force to crush the enemy. But his height of nearly 3 meters also gave him the confidence. This is a fierce hero who is suitable for charging forward and tearing the enemy's formation. After making an accurate evaluation, Lear waved his hand and asked the wetland lizard men to go up and clean up the battlefield and collect the remains. Soon, several silt hippopotamus who could still breathe were brought over. Plop! They were thrown directly into the mud and water. In a miserable state, Lear looked at these lives that were more than 2 meters tall and as fat as pigs, and was about to speak. The eyes of the silt hippopotamus suddenly became misty. My God is eternal. Those who blaspheme will be burned by my God and enslaved and trampled for generations. That the moment the roar fell, the body trembled, and the breath of life suddenly dissipated like a candle that was blown out. No one survived. Lear swallowed the words in his mouth again, frowning slightly. Is this the believer of the evil god? He was secretly alert in his heart. If he met them again in the future, he would either destroy them with the power of thunder or use the swamp banshee to fascinate the soul. It must not be inferred by common sense. The army continued to search, but unfortunately, no valuable spoils were found. The bones held by the silt hippopotamus during the sacrifice were just ordinary bones. The final harvest was these sturdy hippopotamus bodies, plus vigilance against the evil god believers. All in all, it was a small profit. After the corpses were collected, the bubble beast immediately blew bubbles and put them in. These are all food to feed the flesh and blood butcher. Lear looked at the bubbles floating off the ground and smiled with satisfaction. These little guys are really useful. During the battle, they can provide long-range support. During the ambush, they can create traps, and after the battle, they can act as porters and bring a lot of spoils. Almost perfect. He is now looking forward to the scene after all the bubble beasts hatch in 2 months. Perhaps, if they continue to develop in the future, they can establish a heavy artillery support unit. TSK. The scene of hundreds of bubble bombs bombarding every minute is exciting to think about. At that time, let Danya produce more black-spotted bloodworm powder, and collect it while burning the poisonous fog and load it into the bubble bomb. Let the bubble have magic damage and poison damage. After a small battle, the army continued to move forward. Then they encountered 2 more gathering places of wild monsters, but they were all in the scale of 10 or 20 people, and the level was only 4 or 5, there was no challenge at all, and they pushed it directly, and harvested dozens of extra corpses. After rushing at a high speed, when the time came to 11 o'clock, Lear looked at the flashing point on the magic map and waved to stop the army. We're here. His eyes became sharp. Haggis, disperse the wetland lizardmen and be on high alert in this area. Today, a group of wandering wetland lizardmen will pass by here. The city of Weirdo needs to absorb new warriors. In addition, they have the secret method of cold-blooded cavalry. The wetland lizardman hero's breathing suddenly became rapid, and his eyes flashed with excitement. The secret method of the cold-blooded cavalry. He knew that the Lord's words were never false. Praise the Lord. As you wish, great Lord. Lear smiled and asked the other party to go down to make arrangements. Looking at the sparse jungle, everything in the swamp was reflected in his eyes. He was used to the wetland lizardmen. These warriors who did not know pain and were brave and fearless were all advantages. The only disadvantage was that there were too few of them. The 6 teams that died in the last hunt for half-fishmen still made him feel heartbroken. I just hope that there will be enough wetland lizardmen this time. Swamp wasps cannot replace warriors who fight head-on. These assassins with high attack and thin blood are too prone to large-scale losses. It is better to use them as strategic forces at the bottom of the box. After the wetland lizardmen dispersed, the swamp wasps also spread out to be on guard. The exploration efficiency of flying life is obviously more than 1 level higher than that of land life. However, it was somewhat unexpected that half an hour later, the first to send the news were the wetland lizardmen. They heard the sound of the foreign wetland lizardmen warning that the other party was coming in this direction. Lear took a deep breath, and his heart was in high spirits. He did not hesitate and immediately summoned the army to go. 20 minutes later, they came to a muddy area with low grass and trees and only knee-high. The mud below was soft, and ordinary people could easily sink directly when they stepped on it, but the wetland lizardmen stood firmly on it with their open flippers. Looking around, there were at least 300 or 400 wetland lizardmen. They had thick palm-sized scales on their bodies, thick tails, sharp claws, and a height of 1.7 meters. The lizard head on the neck was hideous and cruel, and the amber eyes exuded cold murderous intent. This was a group of ferocious beasts and crazy warriors. Blocking in front of them were 2 teams of heavily armored warriors from the city of Weil. In comparison, the warrior who had been upgraded to level 7 was much better than the other side. With the equipment on his body, he looked even more majestic. The 2 were like a contrast. Between civilization and barbarism, the 2 sides were facing each other not far away, and they were also talking quickly in lizardman language. After Lear arrived, the eyes of those foreign wetland lizardmen immediately became alert. the tone of the two people talking in front also became fierce, but before they could make any move, suddenly, I felt my vision dim. He looked up subconsciously, countless, ferocious black and yellow wasps gathered in the sky, covering the entire sky, the buzzing sound of wings pierced the eardrums. I couldn't help but be surprised, but it wasn't over yet. Behind the human, wetland lizard warriors wearing heavy armor and holding steel knives appeared one after another. Seeing this scene, the wandering wetland lizard man was in a commotion again, his eyes wary, alert, worried and envious all at the same time. A bright, standard full set of metal armor, this is equipment they can only dream about. Now, everyone has these strange kin, and they also have steel knives. Dear God of the lizard men, were those steel knives forged by dwarves? Why does it look so sharp? I feel like my saliva is going to flow out. Why are my own people so luxurious, just because they took refuge in that human being? Looking at Lear again, his eyes immediately became subtle. If the other party is willing to use their own kind, is it possible to use them as well? In the conversation with the other party just now, I could hear the full sense of superiority. No, that's not right, they are lizard people, how can they take refuge with humans? But their own kind can do it, why can't they? Countless thoughts trembled in my mind. When the atmosphere became tense, a strong figure approached from the side. Dominate. Lear looked at Haggis and said slowly. Go and negotiate with the other party to see if you can let them join Welu City. Courtesy first, then attack. If the opponent has a strong will to resist, then you can only cripple them first and then talk about other things. The wetland lizard man hero, who was nearly 2 meters tall, immediately strode forward. When he came to the confrontation area, he glanced around and scolded him mercilessly in lizard language. What surprised Lear was that the wandering swamp lizard men didn't respond. Haggis's saliva sprayed all over their faces, but he still endured it. Just let him be scolded. This was not the attitude just now. Then Haggis, still not relieved, rushed directly into the opponent's formation and started shouting reprimands, just like a grandpa teaching his grandson. The scene looked rather strange. Not long after, Haggis came over with a lizard leader who was shorter than him. Lord, I have taken over them, and they are all willing to join Welu City. Is this the end? Lear looked at the wetland lizard man leader behind him who looked aggrieved, and he was still a little uneasy. Are you a god or am I a god? Why does my little brother kowtow to you when he sees you? He had prepared so much and concentrated all his strength, preparing to defeat them and then enslave them. In the end, he was scolded by you and was honest. Seeing Lear's doubts, Haggis said softly. Lord, the superiors in our clan have direct jurisdiction over the inferiors. There are no heroes among them. He was also a little proud as he said that his power was also given by the Lord. So, just because the opponent has no heroes, you just take them over. Is it so sloppy? The corner of Lear's mouth twitched. He was used to looking at these lives from a human perspective, and he didn't change his mind for a while. Later, after Haggis explained it, I understood. The wetland lizard people have a unique and strict distribution of upper and lower classes. Those with strong strength automatically become the upper class, and those with weak strength are the lower class. Once you determine your identity class, you will immediately enter this system. The superior has absolute control over the inferior. This is a trait engraved in the souls of the wetland lizard folk. In this way, once a battle occurs, the strongest force can be gathered instantly, and there will be no situation where there is no one to command. This is a rule derived from survival. Lear was amazed when he heard this. This is unimaginable among humans. All troubles can be solved by status and strength alone. Those great nobles who were murdered by their subordinates and the kings who were killed by nobles would never appear at all. Looking at the dark heads in front of me, I felt very good. Where did you come from and how many of you are there now? That the leader of the wetland lizard men beside Hags whispered. We have been wandering in the wilderness, looking for habitat. There are now more than 400 people. Wandering without a place to stay is the daily life of many wilderness races. When Haggis heard this, his eyes softened. He also lived this kind of life before he took refuge in the Lord, but now, he has found his faith and pursuit. Do you have a secret method for cultivating cold-blooded cavalry? The leader of the wetland lizard men was stunned and said hesitantly. The secret method of the cold-blooded cavalry? No. I don't know any secret method. The cold-blooded cavalry is the trump card among the lizard men. How can he have such a thing? No. Lear frowned slightly. Just when he was about to speak, the other party suddenly patted his head. He took out a tattered and yellowed parchment roll from his arms. I got this from the tribe elder before, but I can't understand that this is what you're talking about. Lear looked attentively. The properties panel comes to mind, the forbidden secrets of the lizard men, level, special, characteristics. After the lizard man soaks all the secrets with blood, he can automatically control the secrets, which other races cannot obtain. This secret method can cultivate a level 11 lizard man unit with a potential of 3 stars, cold-blooded cavalry. Evaluation, the secret of the lizard men. Lear's mood instantly became extremely excited. Cold-blooded cavalry, 3-star potential, level 11. Together with the more than 400 wandering wetland lizard men, he has a total of 500 to 600 in his hands. If all of them are transformed into cold-blooded cavalry, it will definitely be a fierce force that no one can ignore. Ha ha ha. This is going to take off. Chapter 77 Bloody Sacrifice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Lear calmed down his excitement, he immediately said, "Let's go and catch some small lizards and try to cultivate them first." "Yes, Lord." Hags immediately responded and followed Lear out of the tent with great interest. "First, take out a corpse from the hunting today, and then come to the muddy land in the east of the territory." This wetland lizard hero placed the corpse on the ground, and his eyes became serious. He stretched out his right hand, and the sharp claws of his left hand directly cut blood marks on the palm of his hand. The scarlet blood dripped directly down, but halfway down, it seemed to lose gravity and floated in the air. The surrounding magic power began to flow into it, and the blood twisted for a while, forming mysterious inscriptions. Those inscriptions slowly merged into the corpse below, and the flesh and blood on it instantly rotted. A unique fishy smell emanated and drifted down the wind. The smell gradually faded after escaping for more than 20 kilometers. Seeing this, Haggis retracted his hand, and the scar on his palm recovered quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. He looked at Lear with burning eyes. "Master, just wait a moment, and the small lizards living in the swamp will be attracted." Lear nodded and waited patiently with the other party. 10 minutes later, a small lizard that was as long as a palm, black and yellow, and had a row of barbs on its back came rustling from another patch of grass. When it saw the rotting corpse on the ground, it seemed to be confused and rushed over madly, climbed up and started to eat it. Seeing this, Lear immediately became interested. Is this the small lizard that can transform into a swift and fierce lizard? However, this size is too small. Looking at it intently, the other party's attribute panel appeared in his mind. Swamp lizard, level 1, potential, half-star, racial talent, sensitive sense of smell. Evaluation, common reptiles in swamps. This attribute is so ordinary that it can't be more ordinary. I won't even take a second look when I see it on the road, to train such a small guy into a mount that can be ridden. Interesting. What should I do next? Feed a lot. Hags looked at the little lizards that drilled into the corpse to eat, with strong excitement in his eyes. The runes I engraved with blood have unique power. As long as they eat, they can activate the dormant ancient blood in their bodies. They will be extremely eager for blood and food. As long as there is enough food, they can grow quickly and eventually reach a shoulder height of 3 meters. These are the most proud arms of the lizard men. 3 meters. Lear was also a little amazed, but the problem now is that the 3-tailed pig has not been raised yet, and the flesh and blood needed by the other party can only be obtained by hunting for the time being. The development time is too short, and many things have not been established yet, which is also unavoidable. When dusk came, Hags used this corpse to lure hundreds of small swamp lizards. After the corpses were eaten to the point where there was little left, Lear immediately had people take these palm-sized lizards back to the territory and lock them up. When there is enough food, they can start to cultivate. Looking at the little lizards crawling in the bamboo cage, Lear looked at the hero beside him. "Haggis, can you change your job to a cold-blooded cavalryman?" Haggis said in a deep voice. "Master, of course you can." Lear nodded. Then I will provide blood and flesh to cultivate a swift and fierce lizard for your job change. First confirm how much blood and flesh are needed to cultivate a cold-blooded cavalry alone before making plans." Hagis's eyes were excited. "Thank you for your reward." Lear waved his hand, and without any nonsense, he asked people to bring 20 corpses. "These are all for the little lizards to devour." Hagis, you record the specific consumption required for cultivation. "I need accurate data." "Yes." After Hagis agreed, he looked at the hundreds of little lizards. After scanning a few circles, he finally chose the most ferocious and sturdy one, then he picked up the other one separately, cut his palm again, and let the blood drip. The little lizard sensed the smell of blood, opened his mouth and drank all the blood happily. After a while, Hagis picked up the little lizard and placed it on the corpses piled into a small hill. During the cultivation of the swift lizard, you need to feed the little lizard with your own blood once a day. It doesn't need to be much, but you must let the other party eat it. In this way, after the other party matures, there will be no barrier between the soul and it. This process, we call it bloody sacrifice. While he was explaining, the little lizard had already started to feast. The mouth bit the flesh and blood frantically, then raised its head and shook it a few times to adjust the position, and swallowed it directly into the stomach. Gulp gulp. Under Lear's gaze, in just half an hour, such a small thing actually ate 1/5 of the body of the swamp hippopotamus. The opponent is only as long as a palm. After swallowing a large amount of blood and flesh, the opponent's body length doubled. Directly, growing to 2 palms, the growth rate is exaggerated, but it will take some time to grow to the 3-meter shoulder height mentioned by Hagis. Lear observed for a while and confirmed that its condition was stable, so he did not stay here for long. Let Hagis observe here. He turned and came to the swamp tree man area. There were many corpses piled up on the grass, all of which were obtained from hunting today. Lear was not vague and fed them all to the flesh and blood butcher. The sleeping divine life exuded a familiar scarlet light, and devoured all the corpses in the blink of an eye. Then it conveyed the emotions of hunger and desire for food. This bit of flesh and blood energy was far from meeting the other party's needs. Lear comforted it for a while before leaving. It is necessary to increase the intensity of hunting and wake the other party up as soon as possible. The sky gradually darkened, and at night, the newly joined wetland lizard men enjoyed a sumptuous dinner. There were freshly killed fish, wild boars hunted before, and enough staple food. After the wetland lizard men had a rare full meal, they looked at the lively territory and felt inexplicably touched. How long have they not been so relaxed? On the road of exile, they were always worried about the dangers around them, but when they came to the city of Wei Lu, it seemed that they were safe all of a sudden. Although this territory still seemed very simple, but its strength should not be underestimated. The swamp wasps flying overhead can easily destroy them. A dinner quietly gave these wandering wetland lizard men a sense of belonging, and their faces looking at the people around them were no longer so stiff. Lear looked at the lively territory and was in a good mood. He called Bane, who had been busy all day. "Lord Yin, what do you want?" Lear gestured to the crowded crowd sitting together. "Bane, the daily meals of the wetland lizard men warriors will be separated from others from tomorrow. Our army should be managed separately. The total number of wetland lizard men, Delsa people, and swamp people has exceeded the 1,000 mark. It seems a bit chaotic to arrange them uniformly as before. The city of Wei Lu has reached a certain scale, and it must be gradually refined, and the warriors also need better food supply." Bane immediately agreed, but he hesitated. "Sir, I have been feeling a little exhausted recently. Can you add more people to handle government affairs?" With more people, the difficulty of management will increase exponentially. Bane now starts working from the moment he opens his eyes in the morning until everyone goes to bed. He needs to take care of everything, including food, clothing, and daily expenses. He is really too busy. After thinking for a moment, Lear's tone became serious. "Bane, I now appoint you as the chief government officer of Wei Lu City, and you will be responsible for setting up the Ministry of Internal Affairs. You will select 30 government staff members to be responsible for daily government affairs. After selecting the personnel, I will personally appoint them. Report to me if you need to add more staff in the future." After pausing for a moment, Lear continued. "At the same time, you will also set up the Ministry of Agriculture Management, which will be responsible for managing farmland, fish ponds, pig farms, and all other agricultural matters. You can choose the candidate for the Chief Agricultural Officer and report to me for confirmation. With the development of Wei Lu City, these relevant government departments must be established. In the future, agriculture, trade, internal affairs and other key matters need to be handed over to the corresponding departments for management. He only needs to be responsible for controlling the general direction. The current management system is not even rough, it is still a sketch, it can only be done bit by bit. The advantage is that he controls everything. Once any problem is encountered, he can make timely adjustments, and he is not afraid of making mistakes. But if these departments are established, the current population is still not enough. From the perspective of managers alone, the base of selection is too small, and it is difficult to find high-level talents. Still need to work hard. Bain, who received the order, left with excitement. He can feel that once the system is established, the city of Wei Lu will usher in a leapfrog development. There will be a territory with a complete administrative system here. Everything will be different. At night, the territory gradually quieted down. Lear, who was not used to going to bed early, was going to see the dragon blood-red fish. On the way, he suddenly found that the swamp banshee was rehearsing near the vine fairy, with the light emitted by the vine fairy like a small light bulb. He watched with interest for a while. The more he watched, the more he was impressed by the talent of these banshees. Not only did they completely learn the half-baked acting skills he learned from watching variety shows, but they also learned from them. It had only been a short time since they started rehearsing, but they had already mastered the essence of acting. They laughed, scolded, and changed their faces faster than anything else. He watched with great interest from the side. How could ordinary people who had never seen the baptism of information withstand such a performance? However, there were problems. The emotional fluctuations were not enough. The performances of sadness and happiness were a bit strong. After watching for a while, he simply went on stage to guide them himself. The swamp banshees were also eager to learn. They took whatever Lear said and absorbed nutrients crazily. By the early hours of the morning, their acting skills had improved again, and in the end they almost achieved the best effect he wanted. Lear was amazed. These banshees were simply born actors. In addition to what he taught, the lines and so on were designed by the three of them themselves, but the design was perfect. Although it was different from the original version, the effect was very outstanding. This was Lear's last attempt to get them to add their own singing, without them using their own singing. Then, he was instantly fascinated. I felt lost until the end, and was still immersed in the plot of Romeo and Juliet dying together. After I recovered, I looked at the three swamp sirens with great excitement. Good, very good. You will be arranged to have your first performance tomorrow night. It is time for the people of this world to feel the shock of Earth culture. More importantly, once the swamp sirens know how to perform drama and are trained, then the role will be even greater. In the future, they can perform not only love, but also praise heroes, declare the policies of the City of Dew, and even spread the belief in our God. Chapter 78 Ancient Relics. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, August 18th, early morning, after Lear woke up, he simply washed and immediately summoned the army, and asked people to bring the Murloc captives who had been detained for a few days to him. At present, there are still several important areas near the city of Weirdo that have not been explored yet. 30 kilometers north, there are more than 500 level 9 rotten centaurs. The demi-plane where the two-headed ogre chief is located, the valley occupied by the Dark Naga and the ancient ruins discovered by the Murlocs. Today he plans to explore the ancient ruins discovered by the Murlocs first. If he has time, he will go to the Dark Naga again to try to find out the specific strength of the other party, the gathering place of rotten centaurs and the demi-plane occupied by the two-headed ogres. One is not close, and the other is in another plane, so you can put it aside for now and attack it later. Take it step by step. He brought 3 squadrons of wetland lizardmen and summoned 50,000 muddy wasps. There is also the two-headed ogre chief with the team. The bubble beast and swamp banshee who have been following the battle for the past few days stayed in the territory for a while. Haggis also stayed in the territory to manage the newly joined wetland lizardmen. The family needed a strong hero to keep the place in check. Today's main task was exploration, so there was no need to bring all the troops. after the army gathered, they went directly to the south. The purpose was clear and the action was fast. Among the 300 wetland lizardmen warriors brought, 200 were new. This was their first time to fight with the army. After leaving the territory, they were a little unfamiliar and didn't know how to cooperate with him. Seeing this, Lear directly disbanded the old warriors of 10 teams and used the old to lead the new. Speed up the running in. The wetland lizard men had a very sensitive sense of smell for battle. With the help of the veterans, they quickly ran in together and gradually developed a tacit understanding, begin to get familiar with Lear's command style. After traveling more than 10 kilometers to the south, when there was still more than an hour away from the ancient ruins, Lear felt something strange. This area has not been explored, but no wild monsters were found along the way. There are even fewer mosquitoes. And in the mud, you can often see some messy footprints, but it is difficult to leave useful information in the mud, and it is impossible to identify what kind of life it is. I couldn't help but be alert and let the army strengthen its vigilance. After walking forward for another 10 minutes, the wetland lizard man who was exploring the way came over with a pale and swollen corpse. This is the corpse of a half-fishman. You can still vaguely see the fear on his face, as if he saw something extremely terrible. The skin is bloodless and pale. Master, this is a corpse that was just found. The death time is no more than 1 day. The creatures around here have been cleaned up. Lear frowned. The half-fishman's corpse did not have any major wounds, only 2 striking marks on the neck. It seems that the neck was pierced by the fangs of a wild beast. While thinking, the perception is fully open. After carefully sensing from beginning to end, his face changed slightly after a moment. There was a faint evil breath lingering in the other party's heart. Lear suddenly thought of the scene of the swamp hippopotamus worshipping the evil god he had seen before. That evil breath was very similar to it. Are there other lives in the swamp that also believe in the evil god? As his thoughts turned, his mind moved. Let the mud swamp wasps in the sky spread out and search around to see if there are any abnormalities. Numbers are king. Tens of thousands of mud swamp wasps blasted away, and soon several kilometers around were explored. In the end, there was really something found. After Lear received the news and arrived at that area, he immediately saw a horrifying scene. On a half-wet and half-dry lawn in front, more than 200 half-fish people knelt on the ground with their heads facing up. From the outside to the inside, they formed a circle. Their faces were also facing the center of the circle. The marks on the neck pierced by the beast's sharp teeth were particularly obvious, and there was no breath of life long ago. Moreover, the death state of all the merfolk was exactly the same. Lear's face became a little solemn. These merfolk were obviously drained of blood for sacrifice. The 2-headed ogre chief also strode forward at this moment and said in a deep voice, "My lord, these merfolk are only a shell left, and all the blood and flesh energy in their bodies have disappeared." Lear said slowly, "Have you found anything nearby?" "No, there are only corpses here." The 2-headed ogre chief's tone was also very serious. He felt vaguely uneasy. It is often not a good thing to hook up with the evil god. Lear took a deep breath. It seems that the swamp is more complicated than he expected. Let's go and find the ruins first. Without receiving relevant news, he did not stay for long. No matter what happens in the outside world, the most important thing is still oneself. As long as one's strength is sufficient, no matter how big the threat is, it can be suppressed. After this, everyone's eyes were a little solemn. The atmosphere of the march also became a little depressing. On the following journey, there were still no wild monsters encountered. It seemed that all the lives in this area were cleared by those unknown evil god believers. It was not until more than an hour later that the news from the front slightly diluted the heaviness of the air. Ancient ruins, here we are. Lear immediately cheered up and led the army to go. Through the smelly muddy land in front, they came to a towering tree with countless vines and a canopy covering a diameter of more than 100 meters. Under the guidance of the half-fish captive, he passed through the dense vines and came to the trunk of the tree. When Lear approached, he found that there was a stone door growing on the trunk of this giant tree. The height of the stone door was more than 15 meters, and the width was an astonishing 10 meters. Dense moss grew on it, and the runes engraved on the stone door had long been blurred under the erosion of time. The half-fish captive said in a trembling voice. The respected lord, the chief, said before that this alchemical door has lost its magic power and can only be pushed open by brute force. Lear looked at the exaggerated stone door, and his mouth twitched. How much strength does it take to push it? However, he was still a little unwilling in his heart, and waved his hand to let the wetland lizardman try first. The two-headed ogre chief heard the words and immediately became excited, taking the lead and rushing to the front line. With a height of nearly 3 meters, he was like a little giant, and his strength was much stronger than that of ordinary wetland lizardmen. The wetland lizardmen behind him pushed forward one by one. However, there were not many places to stand in front of the stone gate, and the vines were overgrown around it, so it could not accommodate too many people. Under the roar of the two-headed ogre chief, more than 40 wetland lizardmen exerted their strength at the same time, but in the end, they used all their strength, and the stone gate remained motionless. It felt like pushing a majestic mountain. The two-headed ogre chief, who had always been proud of his strength, finally trembled in his hands. He said unwillingly, "Master, clear all the vines around and make a catapult to blast the stone gate open." "This stone gate cannot be opened by ordinary manpower." That the half-fish captive next to him changed his face. "You can't do this." He hurriedly explained. "My lord, the chief said before that this big tree was originally part of the ruins. Once the vines or the trunk are destroyed, the ruins are likely to collapse directly. According to the chief's speculation, this ruins has a diameter of at least 5 kilometers. Lear raised his eyebrows slightly. 5 kilometers. No wonder the other party is so honest to find the Cyclops. Hearing this, the two-headed ogre chieftain could only stop with a hum of reluctance. Lear stared at the runes on the stone door, and with some thought, he waved his hand to let the wetland lizard man make way, and stepped forward. As he got closer, he could feel the thickness and heaviness of this door more and more. Even if he could use a catapult to smash it, it would be difficult to have an effect. He took a deep breath, pressed his right hand on the stone door, and felt the touch of moss and rock at the same time. His mental power escaped. After a moment, his face was a little subtle. He could feel that the thickness of these two stone doors reached 3 meters. 3 meters thick, 15 meters high, 10 meters wide stone door. "Are you sure this is not a city wall?" At this moment, Lear was a little doubtful whether the Cyclops could push it open. He shook his head and let go of his hand, but at this moment, new information quietly appeared in the intelligence system in his mind. "You discovered an ancient ruin that has never been explored. Extra information is obtained. 1. The gate of the ancient ruins is mixed with a unique metal, which is 10 times heavier than ordinary rocks. Only the Cyclops can use the power of blood to drive the metal to push the gate. Once you break into it, the energy of the ruins will restart and the gate will close again. Only by reaching the energy core deep in the ruins can the gate be reopened. 2. This ancient ruin is a relic of the Goblin civilization. It contains precious treasures, even 5-star treasures, but the ruins are also guarded by extremely fierce mechanical puppets, which have reached level 10 and the number exceeds 1,000. The most powerful is the 14th level mechanical puppet king." Looking at the additional refreshed information, Lear was a little surprised, but frowned again after reading it. "Good guy, this door is more exaggerated than he imagined. It is mixed with metal and is 10 times heavier than ordinary stones. And after entering it, the door will automatically close, and it can only be opened again after passing the level and entering the core. The power of the guardian inside is even more ferocious. However, can it produce 5-star treasures?" He felt that this was like a bait, tempting him directly. "It smells so good. 5-star treasures are not much worse than artifacts, right?" He looked at the gate deeply. Go back first. This ruins cannot be explored now. Although the 5-star treasures are tempting, they must be obtained, not to mention other things. The thousands of level 10 mechanical puppets alone are a chasm blocking the road. Mechanical puppets are mechanical creations, and the deadly poison and pain that are fatal to ordinary life have no effect on them. The effect of the muddy wasp is almost zero. The rest, how much does he need to pay to kill the wetland lizard man in his hand? Not to mention that there is a level 14 mechanical puppet king guarding. With the current power, there is no way to explore. The order was issued, and the army did not hesitate to turn around and return immediately. On the way, Lear was still a little worried, so he asked the army to disperse on a larger scale to look for traces of the evil god worshippers. Finally, 2 more places were found for worshipping the evil god. There were hundreds of corpses in each place, all with pierced necks, forming a circle, facing the center. The time of the sacrifice was also within these 2 days. Although the sacrificial site was found, there was still no trace of the initiator. Finally, watching the sky gradually darken, Lear could only temporarily stop the search and lead the team back. Today's goal was to explore the ancient ruins. He triggered additional intelligence and learned the specific information of the ruins. He had achieved his goal, but the strange sacrifice he found on the way gave him more pressure. He always felt that there was something hidden in the shadows. The vague danger made him feel more threatened. Chapter 79: The Charm of Culture from Another World, Emotional Fullness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Back in the territory, the sky was already dotted with stars. Bane, who had been waiting for a long time, came out to greet him immediately. "My lord, good night. Did you gain anything today?" Lear briefly informed the other party of the abnormalities he found today, and finally said, "We need to strengthen our vigilance to the south in the next few days." Bane's heart shuddered. The evil god worshippers are a bunch of lunatics, some of whom have even completely lost their minds. And the other party has completed so many sacrifices, their appetite must be getting bigger and bigger. The City of Wisdom will be discovered by the other party sooner or later. We need to prepare early. Lear took a deep breath. "Of course, I will continue to explore tomorrow. As long as we can find the enemy, it will not be difficult to deal with it. The unknown is the most terrifying." After a brief communication, Bane left with a bit of solemnity and began to instruct his men to strengthen their vigilance. Lear did not stay for long and returned to his tent, but as soon as he sat down, the swamp banshee came to tell him a good news. After a whole day of rehearsals today, they decided to perform Romeo and Juliet tonight. Lear was also interested in this. "Let them go to Bane to cooperate." The swamp siren immediately went down excitedly. At night, the crowd who had finished dinner prepared to rest as before, but soon someone noticed that Bane commanded more than 20 people to build a wooden frame in front of the unfinished city hall. The 2-meter-high wooden platform was built. The vine fairy controlled a part of the vine to extend out, set up the foundation, and placed the wooden board horizontally on it, and then tied it with vines to make it firm. A rough but tough and uncollapsed wooden platform was built. The fleshy fairies flapped their wings and stayed on the top of the stage one by one, sitting on a vine that crossed the top of the stage. The light radiating from their bodies was like a little sun. The crowd who had nothing to do after eating gathered around curiously and talked about it. "I don't know what this is doing." Soon after the wooden stage was built, a Delsa man came up carefully, took a deep breath, and summoned up his courage to speak loudly to the dark crowd below. "Dear residents, today is the first performance of the Dew City Drama Troupe. The 3 ladies, the respected swamp siren, Marnie, and Mana, will play the leading roles. The name of the play, Romeo and Juliet." After the Delsa man finished his announcement, he bowed and left the stage with trembling legs. The next moment, the light around him suddenly dimmed. The vine fairy extinguished her light. In a moment, a gentle humming reached everyone's ears. The narration of the story sounded at the same time as the singing. Hundreds of years ago, in the capital of the Griffin Empire, there were 2 big families, the Montague family and the Capulet family. The 2 families have a deep feud, and Romeo is the heir of the Montague family. Along with the soft narration, the light on the stage suddenly lit up. The vine fairy lit herself up again at this moment. Before the crowd below the stage came to their senses, they saw a heroic figure wearing aristocratic clothes, with elegant steps and head held high and chest held high, slowly walking to the center of the stage. This instantly attracted everyone's attention. Romeo was played by one of the swamp fairies, and the other party's temperament was perfectly grasped. Everyone instantly knew that this was the protagonist. Then 7 or 8 Delsa people wearing the same clothes and holding steel knives came to the stage, but after the clothes were changed, they became completely different, tall and proud. The expression on their faces was also very calm. At the beginning, the 2 families had a fight at the beginning, and the 2 sides started fighting directly. Although they were all performances, the crowd was watching intently. This form was too novel and interesting. The people below were watching the excitement, but Lear saw that the Delsa people on the stage were completely controlled by the fairies at this moment. It seemed lively, with more than 10 people acting with each other, but behind them were 3 swamp fairies in control. Lines, expressions, and actions. It is a drama of 3 people, but to outsiders, it is not the case at all. There are many characters on stage, and it does not look monotonous, the props are just a little crude, but those who have not seen the drama do not know what crudeness is. Isn't this how it is designed? Plus the powerful temptation of the banshees singing, the crowd was addicted to it the moment the protagonist appeared on the stage. With the ups and downs of the plot, there was laughter and anger, sweetness and pain. The three swamp banshees felt the surging and unprecedented rich emotional food, and performed more vigorously. After swallowing it repeatedly, the breath was gradually rising. The further it progressed, the more intense the crowd's reaction was, when Juliet was granted marriage. And Romeo was driven out of the territory by Juliet's family. The turning point of the story came, and it immediately set off a super climax. Everyone was furious and looked forward to the change of the plot. The horrible emotional food made the swamp banshees almost crazy, when the priest suggested that Juliet fake her own death to avoid family forced marriage, and then leave with Romeo. The excitement and anticipation reached a new high, wave after wave, without any pause. The swamp siren experienced for the first time what it felt like to be full. Then, as the plot progressed and approached the end, the crowd almost fell into madness. Completely followed the performers on the stage. Juliet drank the drug to pretend to be dead, but the messenger who delivered the message to Romeo was delayed, so Romeo did not receive it. When he saw Juliet, who was pretending to be dead, he mistakenly thought that his lover was really dead. In grief, after a decisive last kiss, he resolutely drank the poison and fell into his lover's arms. At that moment, the crowd burst into tears uncontrollably. Lear could clearly sense that the aura of the three swamp banshees soared directly at this moment. The level jumped from level 3 to level 5. The surging emotions almost became the top magic potion, which gave them a big improvement, but this is not over yet. Juliet, who woke up, watched her lover die in her arms because of a misunderstanding. In grief and anger, she also drew her sword and committed suicide, a desperate tragedy of mutual love, but ultimately dying in each other's arms, once again made the crowd below explode. The newly upgraded swamp siren level was raised from level 5 to level 6, and the waves of emotions made their breath increase. The original ending of the play was that the two big families finally recognized the nature of hatred and resolved the hatred because of the death of their heirs. It was considered to comfort the audience for the death of the two, but Lear directly removed this ending. The final scene was the death of the two. The knife should be used in the most cruel place. Strong resentment and unwillingness, painful emotions, came one after another. After the vine fairy on the stage slowly turned off her lights, after the singing of the swamp siren also stopped, the audience below was still silent in this peerless tragedy and refused to come out. It hurt so much. The two met and fell in love from the beginning, and the sweetness they brought to them was as strong as they died in each other's arms in the end. The audience who experienced the baptism of drama for the first time felt an unprecedented impact. Even after the Delsa people took the stage again and announced the end of the show, the crowd was still reluctant to disperse, and was discussing the performance crazily. They were full of resentment that the two could not be together in the end. They were furious that the messenger delayed the message, and they hated the family that blocked the two. Every discussion and anger would continue to generate emotions. Some people even had different ideas, and the emotions generated in the debate were richer. Backstage, the three swamp banshees looked at Lear with sparkling eyes, as if water could drip out of them. "Master, you are so awesome." Their tone was full of sincere admiration. They had been worried before, but judging from the effect, it was hundreds of times stronger than them seducing people to create fear and then killing them. Killing a person, the fear created is strong for a short time, but it will pass in an instant, and there is only one emotion, and the other party will soon become numb. But now, almost all emotions are included, including joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness. Before, it was like eating a single recipe and could only eat one kind of food, but now, there are hundreds of dishes in a rich feast. The feeling is completely different. And the most important thing is that this is not a one-time thing. After the performance, there is still a constant flow of emotions that are not inferior to the emotional ups and downs during the performance. Listening to the heated discussions of the crowd, this wave of enthusiasm will not decrease in the next few days. This is simply perfect. Praise the master. Lear smiled knowingly. It is already very good to achieve this effect for the first performance. But keep improving. You will definitely find problems in the performance. Improve them. What can attract people's attention? what distracts the audience, you should be able to have a direct experience. Improve those bad places and strive to polish out a perfect script. In the future, the Wei-Lu City Drama Troupe will become our trump card, that the culture from the other world will not set off a frenzy. These banshees, whose levels have soared to level 6, may not be long before they can reach the potential limit. Level 12. Level 3 swamp banshees can easily shake the enemies while on the battlefield. What effect can level 12 have? He was looking forward to seeing how seductive the singing of the swamp siren would be. Once they were trained, there would be a lot of things that could be done. Chapter 80 tonight, the 10th Intelligence Update. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, when Lear woke up, the residents in the territory were still discussing the performance last night. Almost everyone was indignant about the final outcome, and it seemed as if there was a fire hidden in their chests, making them feel uneasy. Even the passers-by were discussing it. An immersive performance blessed by the singing of the swamp banshees really opened their eyes. It turned out that there were such interesting, novel, and unforgettable things in this world. The performance on the stage was so close to them, but it seemed like another world. It was really magical, and I heard from Lord Bane that this was a drama that the Lord personally taught to the swamp banshees, and even the human nobles could not enjoy it. Whenever I think of this, I will feel a little proud and contempt for the human nobles. The sense of identity with the city of Dew will also quietly rise. When Lear saw the swamp banshees who had already started rehearsing outside, I was surprised to find that the swamp banshees, who had been upgraded to level 6 yesterday, had another upgrade at this time, level 7. In just one night, it soared from level 3 to level 7. It's really exaggerated, although the lower the level, the easier it is to upgrade, but the doubling is still a bit shocking. His previous level upgrade was using the soul of the half-fish god as nourishment, but looking at the crowd, I'm afraid it won't take much time for them to be upgraded. When the swamp sirens saw Lear, they immediately came over excitedly. Good day, Master. Can we still perform on stage tonight? That the great success of the first performance yesterday made them a little addicted. Lear waved his hand. Put it on hold. Good plays don't have to be performed every day. Polish it first and make up for the shortcomings of this performance. In addition, you can also rehearse new programs. He said meaningfully. How could the Wei-Lu City Drama Troupe have only one play? That the swamp sirens immediately became excited. Master, please reward me. In their view, drama is Lear's reward to them. After last night, almost all the residents looked at them with kindness and excitement. Before, because of the temptation of the swamp people, many people in the territory kept their distance from them, not as close as now, and the benefits of the kindness of the crowd are also obvious, making the emotions emitted by the other party easier to be swallowed by them, once they resist them, even if they swallow the emotions. They will need a lot of time to digest, otherwise, it would be impossible to get such a big improvement in such a short time, Lear said slowly. This play is called Hamlet. As one of Shakespeare's 4 major tragedies, this play can be said to be enduring, but the story and background of Hamlet are more complex and grand than Romeo and Juliet, and Lear can no longer remember the details. I can only give a rough account, which can be simply summarized in 5 words. The revenge of the prince. The old king was murdered by his younger brother Claudius and usurped the throne. Later, the other party married the old king's wife as queen. After Prince Hamlet knew the reason for all this, he took revenge on his uncle. This involves betrayal, vendetta, ethics, the throne, power. Almost all of them are eye-catching plots. The meaning behind them is also very profound. This set of plots is somewhat explosive in the eyes of modern people, but it is definitely the most novel thing in this world. After the story outline is described, Lear can only leave the plot setting, dialogue, stage layout, etc. to the swamp witches to design by themselves. These succubi, who rely on illusions to lure enemies, have enough knowledge inheritance and are serious professional counterparts. For storytelling, this is also an exercise, and in the future they will have to weave more stories that fit this world. To create on your own, you must have enough foundation. The swamp witches have a strong ability to comprehend, and they have already tasted the sweetness of drama, so they are full of energy to learn. After mastering the key threads of the story, they went down with great interest to fill this huge story with flesh and blood. The prince's revenge to regain the throne has always been an enduring legend. The performance will not be much worse than Romeo and Juliet. after this matter was settled. Lear was still a little worried about the evil god's sacrifice. He summoned a squadron of wetland lizardmen and asked them to go to the place of sacrifice discovered yesterday to continue searching. The most suitable for exploration is actually flying life, but although the level of the mud swamp wasp is not low, its intelligence is not high, and it can only accept some simple commands. If it is too far away from itself, the exploration effect will be greatly reduced. It is difficult to distinguish between evil god worshippers and ordinary swamp life. It can only be left to the wetland lizardmen to explore. After receiving the order, the army immediately set off to the south. Now that there are enough people, some things can be done calmly. Before this, he could only lead the troops to explore by himself. Lear, who was in a better mood, thought of the swift lizard he cultivated yesterday. He turned around immediately. When he approached the breeding area, there was some surprise in his eyes. The little lizard that was still the size of a palm yesterday has now grown to a full half a meter tall. The hind limbs of the body gradually become thicker, supporting the entire body, and the development of the forelimbs goes to the other extreme. The claws become sharp and strong, but gradually become smaller, started to walk only on hind limbs. The teeth in the mouth became as sharp as razors, making it very easy to bite flesh and bones. As for the 20 corpses, most of them had been eaten at this moment, and there were still 2 or 3 broken corpses piled on the ground. The lizard didn't pay attention to anything else, opened its mouth suddenly, and bit directly at the corpse. He easily tore off a large piece of flesh and blood, raised his head and shook it a few times to adjust the position, and then swallowed it directly. Blood covered the corners of his mouth and head, which made people feel terrified. Haggis, who was guarding at the side, saw Lear's arrival and immediately stepped forward excitedly, holding his chest and saluting. "Good day, Lord." Lear nodded. "How is the cultivation going? But are there any problems?" "Everything goes well. You just need to provide enough flesh and blood, and it will take up to 3 days to transform into a velociraptor lizard." Haggis's eyes were filled with excitement. It feels so wonderful to be able to personally cultivate the legendary soldiers among the lizard men. Lear looked at the broken corpses on the ground, his eyes moving slightly. "How many more bodies are expected to be needed?" "The specific number is at least 30 or 50, and we can't estimate it yet." Talking about this gives Hugs a little headache. As the top unit of the lizard people, it goes without saying that it is powerful, but it is also very difficult to cultivate. Flesh are the best food, and food is a precious strategic resource in the wilderness. Not only does cultivation require flesh and blood support, but food is also needed to maintain it in the future. Even a powerful lizardman tribe can hardly afford to raise too many cold-blooded cavalry, Lear felt. Troubled by happiness, he turned his head and looked in the direction of the 3-tailed pig. If this is the case, then you can only cultivate part of it first. It will take some time for the 3-tailed pig to grow, but as long as the pig farm can get on track, with colorful moss growing at an exaggerated rate, these won't be a problem. In the past few days, the hunting harvest will be provided to you first. After saying that, people immediately summoned the 2-headed ogre chief. He looked at this level 11 hero who had not yet completed his transformation with burning eyes. You lead 200 wetland lizardmen to hunt in the east direction. The range is controlled within 20 kilometers. Don't leave too far from the territory. Retreat immediately when in danger. The territory needs a lot of flesh and blood. That the other party was also unambiguous and immediately took the order and left. He is still in the process of transformation, which is expected to take about 10 days to complete. Blood and killing can make him gain more understanding and become stronger. Ogres have never been cowards. The battlefield is where they belong. After I'd left, Lear's mood improved again. The feeling of having enough people is comfortable, no more searching and calculating. At this moment, Bane came excitedly to announce the good news. "Sir, the farmland in the south has basically been developed and can be cultivated." Lear's eyes lit up. 5 kilometers away to the south is the farmland area, which has been intensively cultivated in the past few days. 1,000 acres is not a small amount. All cultivated, it can provide consumption for 5,000 to 6,000 people. After obtaining the Horn of Plenty, this data can be greatly improved. Arrange manpower to cultivate swamp wheat immediately. We need enough food. After successively accepting the Delsa people and the wetland lizard people, the population has exceeded the thousands mark, the demand for food has increased significantly, the Noah's rice in my hand could last for half a year, but now I can't hold it at all. This kind of pressure is very fierce. Food is the foundation of everything. If you don't have enough to eat, how can you maintain your territory? If he hadn't obtained the Horn of Plenty, Lear would have been bald. Only now did I understand why it was so difficult to develop a terrifying big city like Lowland City in the wilderness. Wandering, an unstable environment, and food restrictions make it too difficult to develop. Yes. Not even a minute after the swamp hero arrived, he left happily. Lear couldn't help but smile when he saw this. Suddenly, I thought of the information that was refreshed when I entered the swamp. Under the territory occupied by the rotten centaur, there is a 1-star magic plant, blue heart mud fruit. This piece of information is worth up to 3 stars. Blue heart mud fruit is a special magical food like Noah's rice. After a full meal of Noah's rice, you don't need to eat any more food for 5 days. 1 meal of blue heart puree can last you a whole day. Although the effect is reduced, it is still much stronger than ordinary swamp wheat. Perhaps, it's time to consider taking action against those rotten centaurs. A group of more than 500 people can also provide him with enough flesh and blood. Whether it is cultivating cold-blooded cavalry or feeding flesh and blood slaughterers, this flesh and blood is needed at this moment. After calming down, he didn't stay here any longer and continued to patrol the territory. I saw 3-tailed pigs, dragon blood red fish, and pitcher plants all over. The growth is very gratifying. With the corner of plenty around, I can clearly feel the changes every day, especially the 3-tailed pig, whose already huge size began to grow again. A 30% increase in the upper limit of body weight is definitely not a joke. Really fat as a pig. After a walk, I came to the farmland area. I felt very comfortable watching the crowd busy sowing the seeds of swamp wheat. Swamp wheat does not need to be planted. It doesn't take long for the seeds to break out of the shell and grow into wheat seedlings. The original growth cycle of swamp wheat is 3 months per harvest, and 4 rounds can be planted in a year. Now with the cornucopia, the growth cycle has been shortened to 2 months. 6 rounds can be planted in a year. It's simply exaggerated. Whose food can be planted 6 rounds a year? Moreover, the swamp has spacious land. When the population increases in the future, it will continue to be cultivated. Unlimited development potential. This feeling of watching the territory getting better day by day. Lear is a little addicted. The internal situation is very good, but the wetland lizard men sent out to investigate the evil god worshippers failed to bring back good news. By dusk, the army returned, still without any results. Hundreds of wetland lizard men searched the area and could not find any trace of the evil god. Believers, instead, they found a sacrificial area that was even older. This inevitably affected Lear's mood. The sense of crisis became stronger. Fortunately, the 2-headed ogre chieftain brought back hundreds of swamp monster corpses, which gave him some relief. No matter what, strengthening oneself is an eternal truth. As long as the flesh and blood butcher can wake up in time, there is nothing to worry about. When night fell, the crowd looked at the stage in front of the city hall from time to time. Even though they knew there would be no drama performances tonight, they still didn't give up. Lear didn't rush to sleep, but waited for time to pass silently. Today is August 19th, and the intelligence system will be refreshed in the early morning. This time is different from the past. This is the 10th intelligence. Every 10 intelligence will refresh a 4-star or higher intelligence. I was looking forward to today early. Finally, Lear, who felt that time was passing particularly slowly, waited until the early morning. At the moment when the world went from the 19th to the 20th, a familiar prompt from the intelligence system appeared in my mind. The intelligence system has cooled down and can be refreshed. Do you want to refresh? Note, this is the 10th intelligence refresh. A 4-star or higher intelligence will be refreshed. Lear's emotions instantly surged. He took a deep breath and silently said refresh. The next moment, intelligence began to appear, and the first one made him excited. 1, 25 kilometers northwest, there is a high-quality iron ore buried underground. There are cave dwellers who are good at mining ore. 2 stars, it's 2-star intelligence at the beginning.